We're on. Good morning, Robert. Or good afternoon, I guess.
Oh yeah. It's on my part of the sphere, a little bit of more of the afternoon for me. So how are you doing? Enjoying the weather with your pool and stuff?
Yeah, we are all transporting by boat right now, so it's been wild. There's been a few nights where I thought the house was going to blow over, so it's crazy weather. We have about one more small storm coming in, and then I think we're in the clear for a little while.
Yeah, I think I'm getting your wind because today is super windy in Michigan. Um, and I can see you know how you have neighborly things blowing around in the neighborhood. So when I look out the window, there's always some object that's making a travel down the
Yeah.
street and stuff. Yeah, so that's good. So you got anything today? I've got something that's very interesting that I saw earlier in the week um, myself. As things are, I think we're getting to that point where things we thought things were moving fast, and now they're like even moving faster.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds great. What I wanted to kind of maybe dig into a little bit is the capabilities in micro SaaS. So developing applications that help your everyday tasks in various tools, and it's something that is out there today, and it's really easy to use. And I think a lot of people don't realize how powerful and how easy it is to make a small little application that really helps you do, your day-to-day tasks. So I want to cover that. And then I did see some interesting surveys, and this was a blog post I was putting together. And it still looks like, even though AI is out there everywhere and businesses are, putting in all kinds of different solutions and layering AI on top of stuff, the latest survey by a few large organizations is kind of showing a disturbing trend that even though all that effort is being placed into the workplace, the ROI or the value that employees are seeing is not really there. So I think it sits somewhere at 80 to 90% of the people in the surveys responded that AI hasn't really done anything transformational for them. So I
Hmm.
thought that was kind of interesting. I have my theories as to why that's happening. But I think, in a corporate setting, there's a lot of reasons and a lot of things that could be contributing to that. And I also believe that it's not triggering the one thing that really causes everybody headaches. And it's those manual tasks, it's those approval processes. So you can automate something where you can generate tons of stuff, tons of content, tons of things faster than you ever have. But if you have the roadblock and an approval process step, it doesn't matter how fast you can generate stuff, you're still going to get stuck. So I think that's kind of a fascinating observation, and based on some of the results that I saw in one of the studies that they just found.
Yeah, I think there's like a lag, with companies exploring and using tools. Obviously they think it's just a magic silver bullet that's magically going to change everything. Um, but then there is a lot of improvements that people just don't even see yet that are essentially going to be overlapping their lives. And then I did read a bunch on here, which is like, from your standpoint, you were like, oh, a lot of companies are just not seeing the bang for the buck. Then there's insiders that are like the people that are running AI organizations themselves that are like raising the flag, like fully raising the flag, saying, wow, this is really, taking another step, So um, I did, I was reading a blog, and so there's this guy, Matt Schumer. He's a CEO and co-founder of this company called Other Side AI. They make an AI writing platform called HyperWrite, and
Okay.
he's also an entrepreneur. He's developed and he's been known for work in the artificial intelligence AI industry with AI models, automotive complex cognitive tasks, things like this. And then he did other startups, so healthcare virtual reality startup, There's a sports lifestyle brand that he did, and then he also in Forbes got marked the Forbes 30 under 40 or 30 under 30, sorry,
Okay.
on there. So the guy's a pretty smart guy. So he got attention, and this is how I picked up his writing. Is he created an essay on his blog called "Something Big Is Happening," and then what it's talking about is the rapid AI capabilities. It's almost like sometimes things happen faster than people realize happen. Almost like when COVID hit. COVID was probably spreading before the news when they first started doing the news about that. There was that one case in Seattle that first hit the U.S. We have our first case of COVID. It's here in Seattle, this person. Well, that was a lag of, it was already probably 50% spread in the US and nobody really realized it at that point,
Yep.
because there's a lag. And I think this is what's happening with the AI stuff. And let me share my screen. I'm going to show you kind of a little bit here, just what I'm talking about. And it's funny, you have this. We're going to do this screen. So I think a lot of companies, let me get rid of that. A lot of companies are like in this phase. They're using AI and they're doing accidents. Like this is a news article that was published. And if I zoom in here,
Oh, wait a second.
The person that published this.
It's not showing. Try again.
Hold on.
Try again.
Let me stop sharing. Window. No, entire screen. This one. Get rid of move this out of the way. Now is it sharing?
There we go. Yeah. Yep, we got it. Oh wait, I see a newspaper article.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So I think a lot of companies are like right here. They're still trying to figure out how to use AI. Like this is a news article that was published in a newspaper. And what do? They used AI just blindly, and they forgot to even remove this section that says, if you want, I can also create a snappier front page, version of this. So I think, like in your example, a lot of companies are there where they're trying it. They're like, I don't see the use. Like this person, clearly using it incorrectly. When in reality they still need a human in the loop, but they could probably, get 10 times more articles out there, by doing 80% of the work with the AI, as long as he vets out the work. But what I wanted to share is this thing I just shared yesterday, which is basically what I'm talking about, is that article. And in that article or this blog is where Matt, again, he's talking about something big is happening, which is the acceleration of AI capabilities. And it's essentially already disrupting some white collar jobs. And this is, like I said, with the COVID, this is exactly, I think, or what he thinks. And I'm kind of tending to agree based off some of this data I'll go over and some of these other tabs. So in 2020, when COVID was coming out, nobody was really paying attention, and then in 3 weeks, boom, COVID hit. There's news articles, things that were coming out. Nobody could believe, it was happening. Some people thought it was overblown, et cetera, and didn't even believe the COVID stuff. And then lo and behold, everything started shutting down. People were actually getting sick. You actually saw people like, you remember that there was like a news article about that Italian family where they had a wedding, and I think 30% of them just died because they caught COVID, and it was like the higher version of it and stuff. So essentially, we're almost in that same kind of view. Like if you look here, this is Meter, and Meter does scientific studies on AI, and one of their scientific studies is the time horizon for software tasks, right? So for years, AI was essentially down here, just improving steadily, but recently everything accelerated. And that means recently within the last 2 weeks or 3. OpenAI came up with Codex 5.3, and Anthropic had Opus 4.6. And then basically the water, if you think about us in a pool of water, where you're stuck in a room and the water's going up. We're like, now the water's reached our chest. Before we were like, well, man, there's water on the floor. We better look at this. Now it's at our chest, and we're like, oh, wait a minute. This is really getting crazy. So Matt's post was, he brought this up as his own work. His own work every day was basically complex work where he would just basically describe the work in plain English, and just as he did it, the AI would essentially create it, test it, and make it polished. And so now AI is past the point of just following instructions. It shows judgment, taste, etc. And so this chart right here is really to kind of show you, GPT-4, it could probably spend 4 minutes doing a task. And then we go up, and now Claude 3.5, 11 minutes. Yada, yada, yada. Now we're up to GPT 5.2. So this isn't even 5.3, can actually work on a task that includes programming for 6.5 hours straight. And then if you work on the context window, that's what the CI, where the 95% is on there. If you shorten the context windows into chunks by using AI agents to kind of keep iterating over and over again, then you can push it as 17 hours straight of programming and code development.
Wow.
So I think this is where things are going to be essentially shifting over. And if you look at the post over here that was created, there's probably a better graphic on here that kind of talks about basically just this item is there's nothing that's being done that's very robotic anymore. It's like the models are actually starting to develop on their own too. OpenAI said to release their 5.3, they actually use their own OpenAI codex to work on the development work on its own model. So it's already becoming self-recursive, where the models are training themselves and programming on their own to get better. And this is a little bit better little graphic that Notebook LLM came up with to show that other chart I had on here. So anyway, I'm just pointing it out that now we're basically in the feedback loop where AI can work on AI models of its own to make better code, to improve its own training data, to then create another itself a smarter AI model to then point to itself again to improve. So now we're essentially at the point where AI is like working out, and improving itself on its own. So if you pair that with how long it can do the autonomy, we're probably, unbeknownst to us, because it probably hasn't been communicated, this is February 2026, that we acknowledge that it can do 6 to 17 hours. But in reality, on the back end, OpenAI and Anthropic probably have the models that can exceed this and can essentially work, 24 hours to 48. This number is doubling every 7 months.
Wow.
So in 7 months, at least the models we get will go from 12 to 38 hours or whatever 17 times 2 is. So this is just getting bigger, and then 7 months after that, it's going to double again. And that's basically an exponential kind of growth.
Yep.
So anyway, that's what I thought was very interesting looking at this. And that, there's a lag on people putting something into effect and not even realizing that what they're playing with right now is almost like it's already obsolete,
Yep.
So they just have to kind of revamp almost everything that they're doing, because now the AI, with the implementation of agents on top of that, will be able to automate quite a high amount of work that was really, a manual process. And I think I said this before, humans are almost like middleware between applications that don't communicate, you know, making phone calls and then typing in what you talked about to do action. And we're getting to the point where AI is going to be able to essentially augment that and replace a lot of it.
Yes, definitely. And in sharing those limits, those are fascinating, uh, and it really starts to get amazing at what can be accomplished when you start layering on individual agents on top of that. So if you think about each one of those agents being able to do those work streams for that amount of time, and you have a dozen of those agents working on several different tasks, um,
Yeah.
you really start to understand how much can be accomplished just by a well-trained team of agents. And I think that um, that is where there's kind of that missing link. Well, what does it mean to have a well-trained agent? It's not what people normally expect. It's not a prompt in ChatGPT. These are specifically trained agents that are well versed in whatever field or study that you want, that do certain tasks, that communicate with other agents. So you might have a researching agent talking with a development agent, and then they can actually interact back and forth, where they can design a system that you've kind of given a straw man instructions to. So it's kind of fascinating when you start seeing the agents work together to build whatever it is that you're trying to build.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's kind of exactly what this graphic here is. If we can imagine in the future 50 million agents all doing stuff, and they're all smart as a whip, and they don't sleep, and they just work on stuff. So then, I think the landscape is going to change where people like us become almost like orchestrators, and conductors of a symphony of AI agents to kind of get them to go in a certain direction. And in many cases, they're going to explore on their own many things. Um, of course, a fallout to this is people are thinking, oh, well, we could see an elimination of 50% of entry level white collar jobs within 1 to 5 years. So that it's crazy that they're even thinking one year away. I bet you this is very specialized because in some cases, some companies aren't going to be affected because of that lag time that I mentioned earlier. They won't realize the capabilities that are out there or can't implement them, because of their own bureaucratic and slow process. Um, I had a client and we were doing an RFP, and one of the solutions we were looking at was cloud. And the client, we couldn't even look at the cloud-based solution because of the lead time to onboard the cloud solution, going through compliance. And oh, you know what? They're not located in the US, they're located in Australia. So there's more vetting process that has to go through, and yada, yada, yada. Um, I think there's still going to be a lag time on these estimates, but like the highly sophisticated companies that don't have that overhead or are smaller and more nimble, it's likely going to be instantaneous. Where you're going to have a virtual company that's 80% AI agents and 20% humans kind of orchestrating their work.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. And I think one area we're going to start to see this really taking off, and primarily because you don't have the constraints of a large corporation. So, when you start getting into a large corporate setting, you have all the security protocols, how things talk to each other, APIs into proprietary systems. That adds a whole layer of complexities and compliance that needs to basically happen before they can make something mainstream. But if you look at the personal space, your desktop, my desktop, it's a different story because we don't have all those layers of compliance that we have to deal with. So I don't know if you saw, but Claude just a couple of weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago, introduced basically Cowork. And the idea behind Cowork is that Claude sits on your desktop, and now you can configure agents to be your personal assistants. And it's really, really fascinating what it can do. It's basically just limited to your imagination. So you can, like, one example, and a lot of people are playing with this. I've actually done a few to try them. And it's kind of interesting, but you can actually create an agent that manages your file system on your PC. So, like in my case, I have dozens of downloads. I'm downloading, PDFs, instructions, Excel spreadsheets. So my downloads folder has, 2 years worth of all kinds of different stuff. And someday I'll tell myself, yeah, the stuff I want to keep, the stuff that is important, I'll move to the appropriate folder or file it. I don't need to do that anymore. I just tell the Claude Assistant, this is what I want to keep. These are the things that I like. These are the things I'm going to work with in the future. I give it a set of requirements, a set of training guidelines, and then you let it go to town. It'll go into the folders. It'll start moving things around, reorganizing. It'll dedupe, your entire PC. It works as a better search agent than the standard Microsoft Explorer.
Right.
I don't know about you, but when you're trying to find that one file that you did, like, 5 years ago, and you remember like one word, all right, it has, this one word in it, and you're trying to do the search in File Explorer, and it just takes forever, and it pulls up just a bunch of irrelevant stuff. You could actually have Claude Agent go and look in all your folders and find it, and it does it quick, and it does it a lot better than just your standard native File Explorer search. And not only that, you can actually have it move it to a place where you can actually find it in the future. So, there's lots of just little applications if you think of your day-to-day workflows. It's, if you're trying to get to, what a lot of people are trying to get to, the inbox zero, that philosophy that nothing should be in your inbox. I've tried that. It's really hard because it's just the daily amount of emails that I get, and I'm sure everybody is in this space. I mean, I've even put filters, and just the systems and spam and all the stuff, that they're just so intelligent. Even the stuff you subscribe to, if I subscribe to a newsletter, I go, okay, anything coming from this newsletter, put it in this folder, and I can go to that, at various times. But even if I put a rule to set that in, they change it up so that it always ends up in my inbox. And so I have to keep rewriting the tool, or rewriting the rule. And like, I kid you not, and I'm sure you've gone down this route where you put in a dozen rules, and great. Now the only thing that show up are the things that you care about. And then within 2 weeks, it's all back to the normal, 300 emails a day. The agents that you design work differently than rules. They're more intelligent, and they're not rigid. So, if I'm writing a rule that says, okay, I subscribe to TechCrunch, if TechCrunch has 4 different domains that they send me newsletters in, and they slightly change it, that would break any of the rules that I set up, the agent is going to know that, and is going to go, oh, this is just a thing from TechCrunch, put it into the TechCrunch folder. So it's a lot more intelligent and a lot more efficient. And that's just simple tasks. I mean, there's so many things that you can have it do on your computer. If you have, like, I know in your case, you have, gigabytes or terabytes of movies and images and all that stuff. Well, you could design an agent to do something with all that information. Go in and organize all the movies into their genre, and how many times I've watched them, and then you can do another agent that says, all right, I've watched all these things, recommend things that are in my library that I might like. So these are all things that, with just a couple paragraphs, you can configure, and then basically let it free. So I think that still doesn't have wide adoption. There's a lot of power users that are kind of understanding this, and they're starting to build things, and I've seen some really nice solutions, but it still hasn't really, in my opinion, gone mainstream yet, where the average person knows how to do this. I mean, if you go talk to the average person, they're still putting in email rules. They're still opening up their inbox every day. They're still moving files from one folder to the other folder. So it'll be fascinating to see how that kind of takes off. But yeah, anybody that wants to try that, you can just go to Claude and create an account. Unfortunately for the co-work and for the desktop piece, you do need a subscription. So the base subscription, I think, is $20 a month or somewhere in that neighborhood.
Right.
But Claude, I feel, is one of the more generous ones in terms of what you can do on the free account. But if you really want that power and have the agents working, you do have to have a pay account. But still, $20 a month for it to get me to a zero inbox, organize my files, and dedupe my photos, that's worth it to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of time suck activities, just like you mentioned with your, the downloads folder. Yeah, I have a running list of millions of files in my downloads folder.
Yep.
I think I have over 600,000 images from photography and stuff. And even 5 years ago, even before all the AI and facial recognition, that was like the big thing for me. I was like, well, I'm never going to delete anything because at some point in the future, I should be able to consume the whole library of photos and say, what was that one time I wore that green shirt and somebody was at a birthday, and boom, it should just be able to pick up all that because of the multimodal, features that are available to read every image and see who's in it and what they're holding in their hand and stuff like this. So it's good stuff.
I think you're actually at a point where it can do it now.
Yeah.
Now, what I don't know is, like, if you put an agent, how it would consume all 600,000 images and catalog those. But assuming you might need the pro account for $40 a month to do that. But so
yeah.
But
yeah.
it's definitely at a point where you could drop 100 images into a folder and see what it does. Create an agent and just say, hey, you are go look at these images and understand the details, and I'm going to give you some prompts, and then you can just test it. Hey, what images am I wearing a red shirt, and then see what it does. That's one of the power of these applications, is that they're relatively easy to start, and if it doesn't do what you want, you just ask it to do something different, which is kind of I think just we have all been trained to live in boxes. We live in the Microsoft box, or we live in the Gmail box. We live in all these rules, like, okay, in Gmail you got to do things this way. In Microsoft Outlook, you got to do things this way. In Teams, you got to respond this way. I think where a lot of this agent type stuff is going is that we can start designing workflows that make sense to us. We don't have to live in the Microsoft world. We still have to deal with the Microsoft, but if we don't like something that Microsoft does, we can have an agent that sits and works in our way, and then just puts it in a format that Microsoft understands. I know that you saw the CRM for one of the efforts that we're working on. That CRM tool that I built it primarily because I don't want to live in the box of the CRM providers. Because they all charge us $50 a month per user, and that'd be very expensive for an effort that we're trying to do. And they are all pretty hard to set up, and they don't do things in the way that you kind of want to do something. So you're forced to work in the way that they want you to work. So that's primarily why I built it. It didn't take very long, and it's not, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles as like a HubSpot or anything like that. I'm not going to say that I built a HubSpot, because that is not true. But it does what we want in the way that we want to work, and it's effective so that we can reach as many people as possible and see results. And I think that's the shift. I think that's where when everybody starts recognizing that, if you're a small business, and let's just say you own a hair salon and you have some appointment setting software, well, the appointment setting software says you have to do these 4 steps, and a person's got to do exactly this step, and it'll book this, and then you got to go over to this next step that somebody has to approve. Well, maybe you don't have all those people that can do those things. In today's agent-based world, you could design that system exactly the way that you want. Somebody calls and they say, I want to book an appointment. It understands that. It grabs the information, and then you want it to send it to all your, all the people in your studio. It does. And they pick up the appointment and they put it in their calendar, and then it sends a confirmation email. You can build it to exactly the way that you want to personally work. And I think small businesses are going to start figuring that out. But I think also it's the corporate world that I think will benefit the most when they start to figure out that, how do you effectively manage a team, and how can you make your team so efficient that you can start doing strategy as opposed to pushing paper.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's it. It's putting these into effect. So we hear about them. We need to experiment with them and try it, change the way we do things, so we can all benefit from this.
Yeah.
I like the idea of essentially being platform agnostic, where, because I myself, I probably have like, I don't know, 8 mailboxes, depending on, company thing, bills here, do this there. It would be nice to kind of aggregate kind of all those activities with agents to kind of, do this manual upkeep.
Yeah.
There's doing taxes alone and consolidating receipts and purchases and categorizing those is a huge burden just on its own. So even if agents could do 80% of that work, that's fantastic.
Yeah. It's really amazing what you can do. I know some people have hooked up the agent to their banking account. That's whether you want to do that or not, that's up to you. I'm not recommending one way or the other to do that. But if you did do that, it went through all the different spending, and then you could even cross-reference that with your emails, and then it can do amazing things. It can find trends. It can find places where you're inefficient in spending money, where you can save a lot more. I think if you build it right, you can build it to the way that you spend money, the way that you shop. Whereas if you just go and try to do any of the budgeting apps, you're kind of stuck within their framework, whatever framework you choose. I know we've tried YNAB, and YNAB is great. It's a great platform, but you have to be very disciplined, and you got to track every penny. And I think a lot of people fail in something in YNAB because it's so detailed, and it takes a lot of time to manage all those details. With an AI agent, you can actually have the agent manage all those details, and then basically, give you a report or give you guidance on what to do, or where you might need to adjust numbers. So you could actually live in a YNAB world, but have an agent that does all the hard work, if that makes sense.
Right.
Whereas right now, it's just, unless you're super disciplined, running a program like YNAB is, even it still grabs all your accounts, it still audits all your credit cards. But I know, like a lot of people, one of our biggest problems, we buy a lot of stuff from Amazon. And when you buy the stuff from Amazon on your credit card, it just shows up Amazon, whatever, $300. Right. And then okay, all right, we'll be good stewards of our budget. We'll open up that thing. And then on the Amazon purchase, it's some soap, it's, a bath towel, it's, all these random things. And now you're like, okay, what category does that go? And you can spend, 15 minutes on one Amazon receipt.
Right.
You give the agent the right access. It'll open up all your Amazon receipts, categorize all this stuff, put them into the proper thing. And then all you have to do is look at your budget categories and go, oh, my household expenses are, through the roof. Why? Oh, you bought a new set of bath towels, and 4 bottles of hand sanitizer, and you're like, well, why did I buy 4 bottles of hand sanitizer? So
Right.
that's kind of the power that that you have with these agents, and I think the technical barriers to build them is decreasing every single day. I would say probably even like 6 months ago, you could build them, but there was a lot of technical barriers for the average person. But and maybe on one of our next calls, Robert, maybe we'll actually build a live one. Just we'll come up with an idea and just build it, and kind of show how easy and what the process is.
Yeah, I think it's like we've spoken about this. One of my mailboxes is like I get like a lot of messages, and some I have to reply to, others I have to tell it, this is not, I'm not going this direction or whatever. Yeah, that would be great to have a agent that just takes care of all that,
Yep.
and there's a lot of, like we said before, there's a lot of companies that are lagging. I use the Quicken by Simplify to do the whole budget stuff and the reports. But yeah, I'm the one doing the drop down to tell it that Scene Mark is a movie theater. Like, why can't these features should already be built in where it knows, oh, I think this is probably a gas station. This is probably automotive gas. I don't
Right.
have to go through the drop down to tell it to do that. They should have background AI agents kind of doing all that work for me. Um, and then there's just like a crippling amount of just busy work, simple stuff, synchronizing calendars.
Yeah.
I've got multiple clients with multiple calendars, how to keep all those synchronized, updated so they're not crashing into each other. There's just a lot of administrative overhead on just that example alone, not to mention enterprise. I have another client, who's talking about, oh, this UI interface is going to be unsupported at the end of the year. What do? We have to migrate to a new UI. Do you really? Or do you just now look at all these manual tasks and see, you're doing 100 steps. Can you go down to 5? And then can those 5 be on either a new interface, or like we mentioned, can an AI agent do those steps? And then
Yep.
you transform your workforce from clicking drop downs to making sure the workflow works, and then they can do more comprehensive work.
Yeah.
So there's definitely opportunity out
Yeah.
there, and
Yeah.
and so yeah, I'd love to do one just to show people, on a non-enterprise kind of example what they could be using it for.
Yeah. So,
And I have a plethora of work to be done too.
yeah. So we can choose a simple problem, and then we can just build it live and show kind of really how easy it is to build. Some of the troubleshooting that you need to go through. But as mentioned, the models are learning every single day. So every day they get better, and every day they get more intelligent, and
Yeah.
they make it easier. Just as an example, I know I shared this with the team last night, but we do have a small business service where we help small businesses automate tasks, and we build solutions. I built a dedicated website for that effort, and I put a smart agent on that website that basically answers automation questions. So you can ask it, give it an industry, and then say, ask it what you're trying to automate, and it'll give you some advice. All that was done with relatively an easy back and forth with an IDE developer, Anti-Gravity and Cloud Code, and kind of just giving it requirements, going through some of the security checks and setting it up and connecting it back to the AI agent. But none of it was super hard. And what we got out of it is a nice chat bot on our site that is not, it's well more it's more specific than something that you'd put into ChatGPT. And one of the interesting things that when I configured it is that we can put it in with all of our knowledge and all the ways that we interact and build and the processes that we use and the advice that we give. We can train that agent. So now when somebody goes and asks that agent, they're basically getting our voice in the way that we would approach something to solve. So that was something that I put on our small business solution site. The iteration 1 is out there. It'll be released probably tonight sometime.
Okay.
But as we start going through the iterations on that, we could get it to a point where we could basically instruct somebody how to do just like a little micro solution. You want to automate one email step, you can ask our agent and it'll tell you the exact things, where to go, how to do it. And it'll be really helpful for some of the people that are just trying to, understand where they want to go and what they need to do. Now, of course, you could ask Claude, you could ask ChatGPT, and you'll get answers. But the problem is that you have to be more refined and you have to know what you kind of want to ask, because they'll give you a general large answer, not necessarily honed down to what you're after. So that was just something that will be released. Wasn't that hard to build. I'd say 6 months ago, it would take me a long time to build something like that. Just because, I'd have to build an agent, educate the agent, put a lot of code behind it, and then wrap it up in some type of way to serve it, and then integrate it into the website. Today, all that theory, all those pre-instructions are already kind of there. So the LLMs just know how to do that now, and it does a good job.
Right. Well, why don't we? Yeah, I like that. Let's do a live session. This one we'll put out an event for. I'll let people know if they want to either join or give us ideas of things that are pain points for them, and then we can show them, whatever 60% or a certain percentage of doing it and solving it in that 1 hour window that we have.
Yep. Yeah, I like that a lot, because we could do. That's a great suggestion. If we get some interactions in the chat, somebody can just throw out a simple idea and we'll just build it right there on the spot. And
right.
Like you said, Robert, it'll get 60% of the way, because there's a lot of kind of refinement after you get to that big chunk, but the big chunk will be there. And we can show people just the process of how you kind of go through and iterate and start to build an app or a solution, or build an agent that does something for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'll be good.
And I'm excited, because I think in terms of your standard SaaS providers, where I see the market going right now, you have a ton of SaaS providers that provide different things. You got Salesforce, HubSpot, Quicken. You have all these different types of solutions. They've spent a lot of money and a lot of effort in making their platform secure. They can be integrated. They're HIPAA compliant, SOC 2 compliant, all that stuff. And that's why corporations pay what they do for things like Salesforce and some of the other SaaS providers. I think fundamentally where I see the market going for the large corporate SaaS solutions is somebody, and I would love to do this. It would take some time and some effort, but you basically have a platform that does all the security piece, right? It does your user authentication, the encryption, all that base level stuff that makes a solution enterprise grade. And so that is kind of, that is now the solution, right? It's that secure level infrastructure. On top of that, you then would have agents that you can customize to whatever you want. You basically say, all right, I have an accounting department and I have a marketing department. I need the marketing department to understand the finances in the accounting department so that they can draft up proposals that fluctuate with how, how our sourcing is doing. So you can put those requirements in, it builds the agents, and then it builds it on top of this secure network. And so now you have a solution that is custom to your business that does what you want, and it's not put into a box. Because like if you wanted that exact solution that I just mentioned, you're going to have something like Oracle or some accounting software. You're going to have something that pulls reports out of there and does something. So now maybe you're looking at a Power BI or some data extraction service. Then you're going to have a marketing platform like a HubSpot or a Salesforce that's going to have all your clients, your proposals, and then you're going to have a legal thing that has all your documents, your proposal written, your language, and you're going to have to connect all those to basically get a pseudo thing, but you're going to have all these layers in between where the approvals, I need approvals to go get the marketing document. I need approvals to go get the legal document. So now, instead of having all those, you could actually kind of come up with what you want in your workflow. I need someone to grab something from finance, then I needed to grab something from legal, and I needed to interact with our sales team, and I needed to do this. And basically, you give it those requirements, you give it the permissions, and it goes and it does that, and it generates results based on your workflow. And I know that's kind of complicated to understand, but basically, I think the future of SaaS is not point solutions. It's build a solution you want.
No, I agree. Especially with how this autonomous coding and development, where AI can just generate anything. I think we're getting to the point where, in the same way you can, in a prompt, create a movie, you're going to be able to just create a piece of software that does that piece of thing that you need at that point in time that's customized to you. I think that's probably going to be the next iteration with software.
Yeah.
So it's essentially going to be on-demand software solution that you need. So a lot of these big companies like Salesforce, Microsoft, all these that have a piece of software that you use, like email, is essentially going to be null and void, because I can have my own email client that does all the same functions, and the AI will create it functioning within an hour or two.
Yep.
So I think that's essentially going to be the next thing. And then the real problem is compatibility. So when we work together, you make a flow chart of a workflow, it works with my system that can review it, and I can make edits and collaborate. And then probably enterprise will be nothing but approvals. Your AI agents produce this. Legal still will need to approve that thing, no matter how much you authorize it or automate it. Legal still needs to go and look at it and say, yes, this will work. Check. No matter automation is going to get around these different groups doing that. With your example of getting this stuff approved with these different groups, they're still going to exist unless you can eliminate them completely as a group. Cool.
Yeah.
Right, so then, I think we'll elaborate on some examples, or try to pull out some examples that people would like to see, and then we could probably use that next session to build something out in that 1 hour window that we have.
Perfect. And if we have time, we can play, but we can also there's a couple different platforms. So if we have time, we can try to do a few solutions in one of each of the platforms. So there's like Anti-Gravity, which is a local IDE type of solution. There's Claude Code. There is Google AI Studio. So these are all different places. They all have their pros and cons, and we don't need to go through all of them. You can search YouTube and learn all about them. But fundamentally, they're all places where you can build solutions. And once you learn the basics, then you'll start to learn the pros and cons of each of the platforms. And depending on what you want to do and where you want to take it, you'll be point it to a platform that is going to be more compatible with what you need to do. Like if you want just like an all-in-one solution where you build something, you can deploy it, and it has a level of security, it has a database connector, then something like Lovable is perfect for you. If you're a little bit more technical and you don't mind, kind of getting into the weeds a little bit, then Antigravity is the tool for you. And if you are an expert whiz and you're familiar with Google ecosystem, then GCP is the gold standard, but it's really hard to do stuff in there. So we can touch a base a little bit on that, and then maybe try maybe just experiment with a few of the tools with simple apps, because it doesn't take that long. So so maybe that could be our plan.
I like it. Cool.
All right. So yeah, we'll try that on the next episode, and then if it goes well, maybe we'll extend it into one episode after that.
Yeah, I think I like it.
Okay,
We'll do that, and then let's connect again. Cool.
All right. Well, yeah, I think we're about up on time here, so we'll kind of wrap it up for today. But thanks for everybody that joined, and anybody that's going to watch this in the future. As always, if you have questions and you want to talk to the team, feel free to contact us at RevSpark AI, and we can help answer your automation questions or integration questions, or point you in the right direction if we can't help you.
Very cool. All right.
Thanks. Until next time.